I'ma help the people close to me. They help the people close to them. And
Bill, thank you for joining me on the Unguarded podcast. You know, our flow here at Unguarded and Weevolve is really like me picking up the phone, talking to you, and having the ability to allow other athletes really to listen in and feel the same as if they were able to get this time to pick up the phone and hear some gems from you. So thank you, Bill, for jumping on the call. What I like to do is allow the guest, the athlete, the OG to just really introduce themselves, and then we just kick it off from there.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, super excited. We've been kind of in touch for, I guess, a few years now. I was originally kind of launching a startup right around the same time Weevolve was building or was launching as well. And we just met for the first time in London a few months ago. My background is I was a professional basketball player. I played for 7 years around Europe. Started out in Poland, then went to Estonia, then took a year off. I worked in real estate finance for 1 year. Back in Hawaii, I was actually kind of just trying to figure out if that overseas life was for me. Missed my friends, missed living in Hawaii. I went to University of Hawaii, so that really became home for me for a while there. Ended up, missing sport, realizing this was just a once in a lifetime opportunity to live and work in Europe and, broaden my horizons. So I went back overseas, signed in Germany, hadn't really touched a basketball in a year. Signing in top league Germany was not the smartest thing, couldn't hit a shot, and ended up getting cut after a tryout period. Then I signed in Cyprus. Spent a season there, and really I was injured that year and quite close to could have potentially been the end of my career. But I signed in Romania with Steaua Bucharest, and it really was kind of a career revival. I had a coach and team that was really close. The coach was really good at recruiting, and a team that probably was predicted to finish middle table. We ended up, I think, finishing the regular season in first, and that really just kind of catapulted my career. At least, let's say not catapult. I didn't finish that high, but it got me to where I was then playing EuroCup and then playing, finished out 3 years with the same team in Belgium. I moved to UK, London. I guess during that time, I got quite into angel investing, and that's what really kind of got me really interested in the startup ecosystem. I moved to London to do my MBA, which I can speak to athletes on that. Like, there was advantages in doing an MBA coming out of sport, but I'd never had a real job. So I guess I had kind of had a real job. I worked that year in real estate finance, but having an MBA is really like a management level degree. So it's hard to get hired to be a manager coming out of an MBA when you haven't really had a normal job. So yeah, I don't think it was great, but it got me into London, into the startup ecosystem. This was during COVID, so then I co-founded a startup in the sports ecosystem, really trying to take advantage of the NIL rules. We were creating a marketplace for athletes to monetize indirect of sport, but again, didn't really have much experience trying to launch a startup, and I guess I was just trying to figure things out at the time. The market moved. We went through an accelerator program. They ended up investing in us, which gave us, the ability to go out and try and build an MVP, a minimum viable product. We contracted with a dev house without doing nearly enough of the right validation or even getting enough traction. We just went out there and started building, and ended up getting a product that wasn't great and trying to solve a problem that ended up not being there, because a lot of those NIL, I'm sure you see them driving Lamborghinis. They don't exactly want to be doing video calls with kids. They're getting free money, most of them. So we weren't really solving the right problem. I then worked for a couple legal tech companies. And then from there, I'm now working with startups, specifically in a venture studio, helping founders who have ideas to get them to market. So I help them try and all the commercial elements, try and gain some traction in the market, as well as find investors to go out and build their product. Maybe that was long-winded. I don't know.
It's been a journey. It's been a journey,
Yeah.
Bill. I mean, but a beautiful one. I think we always have to take a step back and look at how all the pieces kind of connected that leads you to where you are now, and where you are now is going to lead you to that next pivotal moment of reaching your goals. But I think, I've been paying attention by the wayside, as I do a lot of of players that came before me that are doing things before I've done them, whether it be, now they have solidified their transitions, whether it be they're been in a startup, they're working with startups or consulting, all those things, just kind of paying attention behind the scenes and just trying to pick up as much, information and, tools as possible. But before we jump into that transition, because I know it's a really good one when it pertains to your story, we'll try to hit some key pointers around the actual career you had as a player and kind of what you've learned and how that did help you with your transition. So I guess the first one, which is big for us at WeEvolve, is more or less tell us what was it like picking your first agent? What did you know when you first went through that process? What did you learn when you finally walked away from the process of playing, which obviously, in a sense, or maybe not, in a sense, that's when that agent player relationship usually dies in some cases. I'm sure LeBron
Yeah.
and Rich Paul are going to be riding forever, but not everyone has that luxury. So one key point we always want to hit is how did you go about that process, which is one person of your management team, of course. So you can hit on how you found the other people, as they say, that 360 management team that a player should have around them. But more or less, the agent is one piece of that. How did you go about that process, and kind of what are some things you realize about that relationship now that you are far removed and probably reflected upon it?
Yeah, this was it's a great question. I mean, we're going back long ways. So this was the age of the heyday of Facebook for
Hmm.
colleges. So at that time, I was finishing up my college career, playing at University of Hawaii. I had obviously quite a lot of friends. I'd go back to Oklahoma, train with them. I had teammates that had played professionally overseas. I was getting inundated at that point with requests, or like Facebook requests and Facebook messages from agents, whether it be in America or stateside. And a lot of times these relationships, like they'll work together as well. So like an American agent will generally have partnerships that they have with the Europeans. I ended up narrowing it down to two people, and they were both personal connection, or like agents of my two closest friends in basketball. So I played high school basketball with both of these guys. One went to the University of Air Force, or Air Force Academy, and the other one went to University of Hawaii actually with me. They were both 3 years older than me, so they were kind of, let's say, mentors as well. So they'd already been playing overseas for 3 years. They both gave me, I spoke with both of the agents. The agents both gave me their pitches as well. I ended up going with Ben Pensack. He seemed like he kind of nailed this, let's say, mid-major Mountain West Western Athletic Conference, and getting them into Europe, and then also kind of guiding them like on a good team that's going to grow. It gives you a good opportunity to produce. So like he's not trying to place you on a team that you're going to ride the bench and end up getting cut. It's a place where you can get there and then ideally grow and continue to build your career. So that's really what he sold me on. It's actually kind of a funny story. He came and visited me. I think it was in our last road trip of the year at San Jose State, because he's in the Bay Area. And him and I are sitting in the hotel lobby chatting through. He's got his like presentation, and our head coach walks downstairs, and he starts like, "Motherfucker, get out of here! Don't ever talk to my players. You're done. You're done. I'm never speaking with you again. You'll never speak to any of my players." It was absolutely crazy. My head coach was trying to get me in with, I think, probably his agent or something at that time. So, but yeah, I ended up going with Ben Pensack. He's a great guy, man. I think he really just sold me on his just I already had a personal connection that was swearing by him. And then he'd also worked with, I think, a few other players from Hawaii. So Matt Lejeski was one of his guys, and now he actually has quite a few NBA guys too.
Got you. That's the point. I guess is the coaches and having their loyalties to their agent and shuffling their not shuffling. I try to use I'm trying to work on my language, Bill. Not shuffling their players to the agents they work with, but maybe so referring their players
Mm-hmm.
to the agents they work with. But I know it's a tough business. Are you still, now that you're in life after basketball, is that still a relationship that you're continuously building from a business standpoint, or when your career was over, that relationship kind of died as well?
It kind of died. I spoke with him once, just like kind of market research for my startup. Just trying to chat with him, like, is he planning on moving into college athletics for this NIL space? Because I know that a lot of them have like marketing managers, but he was like, no, I'm just going to stick straight with sport. But other than that, I don't think I've talked to him since 2021, probably, maybe even end of 2020.
Sorry. And with your experience, just quickly looking back, what are some things do you feel you would have done anything differently? I know
Hmm.
you identified, of course, with your own knowledge and asking questions that, okay, this was his track record of like getting players from this tier, and you
Hmm.
really felt you were in that tier, and he was able to find success for this percentage of players, which again, from Weaveall standpoint, we look at that as data. That's something that could be tracked, that we can help
Yeah.
players to, you know that because of your own intellect and how you view things, but not every person can take those pieces and come up with that final answer and insight. And so I guess looking back, what are some things that you would have done differently when approaching that first hire for your career?
I mean, so I was a rookie and I was the year of the lockout. So uh, that summer moved so slow. I don't think I signed my rookie deal until like August 19th or something like that. Like I was already every other year I was already overseas by that time, and I was freaking out and like calling him like, what's going on? Like, and I just should have just like been like, have faith in the situation. Like I was kind of like shopping around with agents at that point, going back to that previous agent, like maybe I made the wrong decision. So then maybe he starts reaching out to teams. And as far as I know, obviously this was probably coming from agents. I don't actually remember who told me this, but they said like, oh, it's not a good look if multiple agents are reaching out on your behalf. I mean, if my agent told me that, obviously it makes sense because he doesn't want me talking to any other agents. I don't remember, but I have been told it's not good to have two agents saying that they have a job for you. So I probably would have just been more patient with him. I know that you said something like you've talked in the past on social media regarding players taking ownership at least near the tail end of their career, like if they're staying with the same team for multiple years, just negotiating your own contract and kind of cutting the agent out. Or I probably would have in that situation at least tried to negotiate because you're playing overseas, you're giving 10%, which is quite a lot. I came to the end of my career and I stayed 3 years with the same team. I was 2 years with the same team before that. So really, I really valued staying with the same spot, making it a home. However, the negotiation in that situation really is almost a nothing. So I should have said, maybe let's cut this down to 5% or something like that. But at the time, I was also like, would I even be here if it wasn't for him? So is it payment in arrears more so that like he's helped me get to this point and now he's able to kind of see the fruits of that labor, or am I, should I be a little bit more strict? So like I, to this day, I don't have a regret about it, but it is something I think that like you can think about it whenever you're re-signing a contract.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. It's not black and white when it pertains to agents. It's not black and white when it pertains to the potential how it's going to change in the future. I think, someone in the legal space we've been talking to calls it transactional debt, that
Hmm.
athletes, when it pertains to the agent player relationship, there's a concept that's out there that they feel it's transactional debt in some cases because um, the work being done sometimes um, isn't really something that is of value
Yeah,
from a 10% standpoint, and possibly also it's because of our own lack of interconnectedness um,
it is a
within
lot.
our community. Because I know some things you probably in the UK naturally hear of things as well. You're not even in the space, but I'm sure you probably hear of some openings or something like that. So again, that lack of interconnectedness from our network as
Hmm.
athletes, former athletes, etc., causes for that piece for that piece to be more valuable,
Hmm.
where that intermediary can charge, and a big price
It's
because of
yeah.
our lack of interconnectedness and our network being kind of fragmented.
I think it's such a dated system as well. Like I that 10% probably, that's going back from probably the 80s and 90s, whenever the agents really were a necessity. They were acting as middlemen, finding the jobs, and then probably also doing most of the communication. But now, like, one of the things that I found so strange is that the risk these teams were taking in hiring based on the recommendation of an agent. So they have to have they have to really trust that agent. And then two, maybe like one or two phone calls with like a previous coach. Like, I don't think, and then also obviously watching some game tape, but like whenever you get hired in the real world, like you're doing multiple different interviews. You might even do some type of a team activity to understand. So like maybe you meet the captain as well and have a
Mhm.
conversation. Like there has to be some type of culture fit, because these teams are taking gigantic risks on, like, it pertains to it has ramifications on your entire season, by making the wrong hire at a certain position. Like if
Correct.
you hire a point guard that's a rookie, that's selfish and doesn't get along, doesn't care to get along with anyone, and all he cares about is that next step, you didn't need to make a cut, and that's going to cost you, or you really cooked your entire season. You're putting your
Your
entire
whole
season
season.
on
Yeah.
something that's not even. And so that, in my opinion, needs to be the first thing that changes within the
Yeah.
hiring system overseas. They have to start doing more culture fits.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the culture fits. It's personality, which is simple, of
Yeah,
basically everyone doing basic personality tests and helping
yeah,
coaches to understand the dynamics there. The data out there for performance is there. So you can probably figure out through data what type of post players I've been most effective with in the pick and roll.
mhm,
And then if the new post
yeah,
player you're about to hire fits that trajectory of the post players I found success with, now possibly you have a match. If that post player is your core person, then I match. And if I'm the core person, then that post player matches to start building your pieces. So it's doable.
hmm
I think it's just thinking outside the box and being willing, I guess, to create something that is kind of against the status quo. But you're right. It's definitely outdated. It needs to change. It's just finding what's the strategy to do that.
hmm
Let's talk. You hit it up. Contracts. Contracts, I think, is something that every person in the world deals with, not just athletes. But could you share one insight around your journey with contracts across playing during your playing career? And also, how was it for, as you talked about negotiations where you could have negotiated more, but how much education was available for you around the contracts, and kind of what's one or two situations, whatever you can share, that kind of highlight a little bit about the journey you had around having to sign and finalize contracts throughout your career.
Okay, yeah. Um, Probably a few things jump out to me, like as far as like trying to make sure that you have like your bases covered, trying to negotiate, and it's not always possible, but getting paid in local currency, or not local currency, in your currency, USD, and whether or not they pay you in euros at that, but it needs to like be at that day, but it has to be like the USD is where it's benchmarked. Because I was benchmarked once on a local currency, and then the local currency fluctuated so much that I ended up getting paid less. So like that needs to be number one. And then two, like paydays. I'm sure if you're playing overseas, pretty much everyone here has experienced being paid late. Um, and then they can come up with some really kind of tricky ways of paying you late and still being contractually on time. So I think I sent over my contract to you from, oh, maybe I should name names. I already kind of did. A team, the team that I played for, that basically was able to negotiate or send a contract over, and they built in a buffer zone that you can't actually complain until 60 days from being late. So I forgot how they did it, but essentially we all had to play, and we were all 60 days late, and none of us could actually say anything or do anything. We had no power until it hit that 60-day mark, and they would always be like, 59th day, there's your payment from 60 days ago. And that also gives them so much leverage going into the summer, because then you're like, I have to fly home. I haven't gotten all my money. So then you have to like just try and get it to where it's, they at maximum have 7 days before you can say, I'm taking this, I'm sitting out.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so many things, of course, and thank you for donating the contract. Of course, it's needed. So again, pulling unique insights like what you just shared, but also understanding more about the more we get, the more we can know which clubs are doing what agents also are doing what, and helping the player to be aware before they sign something of their rights. Um, I think when it comes to just learning the rules, was there, did your agency kind of really educate or really keep you up to date of all the intricate details of your rights and everything for around the contract? Or was it just something you learned by having something happen where it was a mistake or a failure and then saying, oh, now I know? How was that dynamic for as just education around contracts for you and your during your career?
Um, I mean, he would read through the contract and he would usually highlight anything that he thought might come out, but then I would also I would read through everything. And I don't know, I feel I think I always kind of felt somewhat comfortable with like legal language and stuff like that. So I never really asked for anything specific. But I think your agent should have a responsibility to educate you, and like also be very, very pushing in the fact and be like, you please let me know if you have any questions about this. Like, because maybe some athletes are hesitant to come off like they're unprofessional or not intelligent or something like that. So they just, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But like the agent should say, if there's any questions regarding this, let's get on a call and let's walk through this, and I can go through every point with you.
Got you. Well, definitely wanna shift. Of course, always want to just get insights on that key hire. I think your first hire as an athlete, the agent,
Hmm.
and then of course the contract. Two major things that we both know cause athletes to slip. Either you choose that wrong agent, or of course you sign a bad contract that sets you up for just to have a bumpy, turbulent rest of your career. But
Hmm.
as you've gone through your career, of course, you clearly, went into real estate when you took the year off. So you were already a dual career athlete, as we say. You were already thinking about both paths. What do you think about when did you realize the value of your network? So you've traveled around the world. Of course, you were a high elite level college athlete, then being a professional athlete, which obviously helps you build a network and build awareness globally. At what
Hmm.
point did you realize the value of your network? And
Hmm.
how can more athletes, you think, utilize their network to get them into spaces that can help them transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you can really kind of go back all the way to the start of my college career, like getting the scholarship to Hawaii. The guy that was playing at Hawaii already, his mom and my mom were teachers together in at an elementary school. Right, it was at a high school actually. They taught special ed together. So like that already, and that he told the coach about me. He came to visit me at a camp, and then offered me a scholarship. So that already got me there. My network also, like as a professional, I don't think it really got myself a job, like within sport. When I came back and I got that job in real estate, that came from personal connections I made at Hawaii, and then friendships. And there's a guy that was playing that went to Hawaii. We were friends at the time. He started working for this real estate finance company, and he introduced me to the boss. So like that got me that job for sure. And then while I was playing, I had a teammate that came and joined me, also from Oklahoma. He would he asked me about I told the coach about him, so like I kind of helped him get a job. I think your network is really important overseas, and it really does grow really quite quickly because there's so many players that are kind of playing at this same level. let's say. And so the degrees of separation is very minimal usually. You can call up somebody who will know somebody who played at a job. So I would usually always try and do some research, reach out to the network and find out what is that organization like? What is that city like? What can I expect by playing in that league? So the value of the network and beforehand of going to a job and accepting a job, I think is really valuable. Um, I think that answers that question. And the other question was around how do I build the network, right? Or how do I, was that it?
What's kind of, again, that feedback you would have or insight on
Hmm.
this is how, again, we're talking to the athlete community, how
Yeah.
can they be aware and
Yeah.
actively build that network? Because it's not easy.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
personally going to a lot of these events now, and it's like, hey, you have to find ways to, as they say, work the room, and how do
Yeah.
you really do that? And it's awkward, and it's not. And I'm an extrovert, and I know it, so I
Hmm.
can imagine an introvert going into those spaces.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, I think uh, let us know the flip side of what's the insight you've learned of how to build that network proactively.
Yeah. I think like, I mean, I'm someone who like, for lack of a better word, like wants to be liked. Like I've always been like that. So I always like try and like, impress people and talk to people. And I think like if people like you, they want to help you. So like it's something to always be thinking about. Like players I know that were much better than me at basketball didn't get jobs because people don't want to work with them. So like keep in mind, like don't be a jerk when you go to practice. Teammates should like you, fans should like you, organizations should like you, coaches should like you. Like keeping that in mind, like there's no reason to be a jerk because it only costs you money. It's stupid. All number one, that's like the first thing I think. As far as like leveraging your network, I don't think that I need to be much better at that. Like I've always been the type of person that like I think I can do it on my own and I want to like try to show that I'm going to be able to do that. I don't need someone's help to do that. And so I think I need to be much more aware that like other people can help you. I think I'm like a bit of maybe somewhat of a control freak in that I think I don't want someone to like I remind myself of a story in college where we had like home parents that would like do our laundry, and I was like, no, you're not touching my laundry. Like it was like that's to the degree of like I'd rather just do everything myself. But I think in general, I need to like get out there more, network more. And I'm yeah, I'm the same as you. You and I went to a networking event together, and I think we sat there and probably chatted to each other for probably too long. So I definitely need to get out there and start having more conversations, especially in the VC space here in London.
How has as you're going again, we'll touch on the a little bit more about the transition in itself, how that felt for you.
Hmm.
But to keep on about networking in these spaces of finance, etc., have you found the former athlete, or I guess we will say that elite level competitor athlete? Have you found that connection to help you in rooms, or does it feel kind of like there aren't many of us in those rooms as you've transitioned?
Yeah, I think I'm fortunate in the fact that I'm a former athlete, but I'm also very tall. So it's a bit of a conversation starter for myself. So a lot of people will come up and be like, "Oh, you're quite tall, you're a basketball player," and I can actually say, "Yeah, I am," and can kind of it gets the conversation at least going. Um, that event that we went to, I really enjoyed because it was all about like sports and entrepreneurship and sports and startups. So there, I made some really good connections. I haven't really like I guess leveraged my network enough as far as like meeting new athletes or former athletes here. I need to do more of that for sure. There's people there's the London Lions here. I want to try and like start chatting with those guys and talking maybe do some kind of like mentorships around transitioning out of sport as well.
Got you. I mean, I know you were building your company, your startup, you got funding, etc. And then of course you had to pivot and, kind of take another route, but still being in the ecosystem. During the time of the transition, what was that like emotionally? How did you strategically plan? Like, okay, what am I about to do? Many, the common thing is I don't know what I'm about to do next. But and I think we all ask that because you have to ask yourself that to figure it
Yeah.
out and get the answer, you know. But what was it like during that time where you built a startup? It's not going exactly how you planned. Um, During that time, what was it really like as you really detached from the game and then had to go into the world of business, corporate, and all these other things to start having a life, truthfully.
Yeah, I'm like the type of person that's all like I need to do better at living in the moment for sure. Even whenever I was still playing, and I think this caused my career to end a little bit prematurely. So like, take my advice here with a grain of salt. I was already like for years like, what am I going to do after I'm done? And it was always playing in the back of my mind, and it kept me from being like laser focused on basketball at all times, getting better and trying, and then worrying about it. If you're playing overseas, traditionally, like almost assuredly, you're going to need to have another job whenever you're done playing. So in my mind, I was always like trying to kind of learn a new skill every single year, whether that be like, investing. I tried my hand. I was doing stand-up comedy overseas. So like, there's all kinds of like little things that you can do. You have so much time off. I think in general, you should keep your eyes on the prize and keep your head down, focused on sport, but thinking about that future. And then whenever that actually did happen for me, I was really trying to figure out the best way to transition out of sport. I thought like going back to school made a lot of sense because what I studied in university wasn't something that I was really interested in anymore. And then it gave me a bit of time to try and figure out what that is, and also some structure in my life as well. And my parents all work in education, so of course they were like, "Yeah, you should go back to school." Um, After I was done with school, then that's whenever it really hit me like, okay, what do I do now? So and at that time it was during COVID. So really no one was hiring. I definitely wasn't going to get hired to stay in the UK without any work experience. So started to start up, brought on some friends to go with me on that journey. And it was like, I didn't know, like, again, I had never like really had a job. So I didn't understand like what kind of work levels it takes, where you need to go. And like now, that's why I'm so passionate about my job now is that, founders come to me really with the same level of confusion. They're like, I don't know what I should be doing today. And there's days like that as a founder where you're like, I really don't know what to do. So, yeah, like it was really mentally challenging at the time. I would say like there was many days where I was just like, what am I doing? And also still like, again, like I wasn't fully laser focused on that job because I was like, if this doesn't work, what am I going to do next? If this like, again, like I need to just stay in the moment, focus on keeping my head down, and that's really what I'm trying to do now, more so than I've ever had before. It's just really trying to focus on providing value.
Got it. And emotionally, how was that like? Do you think because you were already always thinking about what's next, detaching from the game didn't take a toll as we hear for some players?
Yeah, I was pretty much like completely out. Like I've really compartmentalized my basketball career. I forget about it a lot, if I'm honest. Like people, whenever I see my friends that are still playing or something, and I'm just like, wow, that's crazy that was just such a big part of my life for so long, that I don't. Yeah, I haven't touched a basketball in over a year now, so don't
Yeah,
miss
and
it that much.
how is how is that? How is life not touching the ball for a year? I don't know how much you watch it, but how has because I think there's an element someone told me yesterday, like it's that fear of what is on the other side. And
Yeah,
so, and I mean, it's true. It's like you know you're preparing yourself for it, like for myself, but it's also like, fuck, I have no
yeah,
idea. Like the moment it's done, that cushion is gone. So I guess
yeah.
how has it been on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like I tell people, like really, I've failed forward so far. Like it's just failing, learning from that, and then taking those learnings into the next spot. Um, the thing that's tough about being an athlete and then transitioning out of sport is I'm now 36 and I'm really only been working for 4 years. And two of
Hmm.
those a year and a half of that was, I think maybe even like 2 years of that. Let's see. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Most of that or some of that was me founding my own startup. So I still wasn't really building my actual career. And so
Hmm.
I'm theoretically in like work age 25, 26 compared to like my peers. So like, how can you level up your career as fast as possible? And that was one of the reasons why I actually did go working. I wanted to work in startups because that's the place where you could get an early role within an early stage startup and be a jack of all trades, and then eventually grow with that startup, and then be able to faster into management than you would if you went and worked at Ernst and Young. Then you're 32 and you're on a track to not do anything until you're 39.
Yeah, I mean, what a definitely that's a key point. One point you made is getting the MBA, of course, which we know there's a lot of programs like in London, etc., where you can play, get your MBA, um, or get your master's. But one thing you said was like, yeah, you had it, but then you needed the work experience. Is there a possible way, from what you've seen, that maybe more players could be getting that work experience while playing and not just waiting at the end, like whether it be small things or whatever? Is there some way to kind of balance that dynamic?
That's a great question. Um, it's tough because, like I said, like I do think there's value in just keeping your head down. Um, I actually wish that I would have done that better. I wish I just would have focused. So, but if you are trying to do that, it depends on what you studied in college, probably. If you studied business, there's probably ways you can get internships. I think probably your network is probably the best way to try and build some skills in the off season. I don't think
Mhm.
many like actual like real companies, if you don't have a connection in there, are going to just hire someone like an athlete or overseas or something. But I think if you have friends that maybe own a small business or something like that, maybe you can ask to help out with marketing or things like that, or maybe yourself try your hand at like that. Usually you do have a little bit of excess cash as well, so maybe you like try and create like some brands or like little run like a Shopify or Amazon or something like that, like do some type of like entrepreneurial work while you're playing. I wouldn't recommend stand-up comedy probably that
How did that go for you? How did the stand-up
way.
comedy go for you, Bill?
No, it was good. It was good. I did it in Estonia, and then there was like a comedy Estonia group that I would go and do performances with. The one thing that is like the only time my teammates came, it was like back-to-back weekends, so I didn't have time to write new material. So I like did my
Mhm.
new material in Tallinn, which is the capital city, and it like landed great. But the problem is like this group of people all went to the next week, and also my teammates joined. So the people that were like in the crowd had already heard my material.
Yeah.
So there was no laughs. So my teammates are like, damn, this is rough.
Yeah.
But it went all
Hey,
right.
that's
I wouldn't
that's
I wouldn't want the footage to get out. I'll say
yeah.
that.
That's a unique one right there. You have to at least give us a picture or something so we could put that on
I do.
the
I have one. I
for
have one
real.
on my Facebook. I can send you that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we have to get that one. Just we won't put any of the jokes out there, but we'll
Yeah,
just be like,
those need to stay away. It
fun
was a
fact.
different time.
Fun fact about the OG Bill. He actually did stand up comedy. Hey, that takes guts for sure. Um. All right. Before we get out of here, is there anything else around your journey? Emerging things coming up. Based on everything we've talked about, any things you would want to let the athlete community know, but then of course anything you're working on that you would want the athlete community that listens in to know about or hit you up for.
Um, I mean, I kind of like touched on it, I think, previously, and like really kind of think strategically, or like actually, first of all, reach out to me. Like, if you want to have a conversation, feel free to reach out to me. I can kind of give any kind of insights. I've had a few conversations with some active players now. They reached out to me like because they want to stay in Europe. If you do like me, and I think you've talked about it as well. Like I'm now an expert on trying to figure out how to stay in Europe and avoid going back to America. So I do know quite a lot about that, what it's like to transition overseas. And yeah, so happy to chat about that. I'm trying to think of insights. Yeah, really like try and think about what it is you want to do, and then kind of like position yourself accordingly. Like I knew I wanted to work in startups, whether that be, I wanted to be in venture capital. That's like my end goal, and it still is my end goal. So like try and figure out what is that end goal, what's that North Star, and then how do you get there?
Perfect. Well, as always, I appreciate the time, appreciate the long text messages, Bill. Since the first time we reached out, and starting my journey with We've you've been consistent. So definitely thank you. And hopefully we'll be able to link up again when I get abroad. I'll be in London for a couple days. So I'll text you after this because I'll need a gym so I can get some shots up.
Tough. We can go lift though. So you asked. That was one thing you talked about earlier about. I will say this: keep your workout regimen moving on. Like that. That's my bit of advice to the athletes.
Yeah.
I let mine go for a little bit and got a little bit soft. So I'd say keep working out.
Yeah.
Now I'm always in the gym. I was in the gym this morning before work, and then find another outlet. Like I golf now. I love golf. I did a little bit as a kid, but now that's my new competitive spirit. I'm quite competitive against myself. So keep working out and find a sport that you can do that doesn't kill your joints. Thank you so much, Jory. I really appreciate having me on.
Thank you, and we'll be in touch. Appreciate it.
Friends of they friends, heed the notion. We started off locally.